Introduce red squirrels to the wild here in the West Country.
A group on Exmoor say grey squirrels have been decimating young trees and would have to be culled to allow the native red species to return. Richard Lawrence has the story.
Could red squirrels thrive again in our woodlands? Grey squirrels are considered an invasive species and vermin. For tree surgeon Nick Hosegood, a pest that can cause serious damage. In this case, a crop that's under threat that had been planted to replace older fallen trees.
And this would be a trial spot for squirrels to come in, and then they'll test this, and then it's really likely that next year they'll come back and do a lot bigger strip, like we can see over this way.
And I guess this is the net result. This tree looks entirely dead.
It will be, yep. That's it. That's all that happens. You can see all the little tooth marks in it where everything's just been stripped off. That's the final result. They've completely nullified 30 years worth of work and just destroying the woodland that we have here.
His wife Kerry is the woodland officer for the Exmoor Red Squirrel project, and she says the red squirrel is known to cause much less damage, and that should enable trees to reach their full growth.
The red evolved with our landscapes across the UK, and I think it's really important that we bring that back in. They are still in parts of the country, certainly in Scotland, Cumbria, Lake District, up north in Wales and in Ireland, and the southwest, mainland south of the UK haven't seen a red squirrel in the wild for 60 to 70 years. It would be lovely. I've never seen one in real life. I'd love to be able to see them running around our woodlands again.
Red squirrels can be seen in the West Country in a large enclosure at Wildwood Escott in East Devon. Reds can't survive alongside the greys that were introduced from America, as the greys, say experts, carry a virus called squirrel pox, which greys are immune to but is deadly to reds. An outbreak is affecting the population in Dumfries and Galloway in Scotland. The RSPCA believes reintroducing the reds would be fraught with difficulties.
You will probably never remove the grey squirrel from southwest England. Just because you're always going to have areas where the animal's going to come back from. You know, it's not like an island like Anglesey, where they did remove the grey squirrels.
Well, no one is predicting when the red squirrel could be back in the trees here. There is an awful lot to be considered, and the authorities will be looking at the evidence from other parts of the country where they have been reintroduced.
Exmoor National Park hasn't formed a policy on the idea of bringing back the reds, but there are benefits, they say, that are worth considering.
As a national park, you know, we've got big ambitions to increase tree cover quite significantly. We want to get tree cover increased for nature recovery, for carbon sequestration, for natural flood management, for all the health and well-being benefits. And as we can see in this wood, that's going to be difficult unless we relieve some of that tree planting of these pressures.
The grey squirrels would almost certainly have to be culled here if reds are to return. Red or grey is no black and white issue, and the debate is likely to continue for years. Richard Lawrence, ITV News, Exmoor.
Well, we're joined now by ecologist and natural history presenter Mike Dilger. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We heard in Richard's report there the RSPCA saying that we'll never completely get rid of grey squirrels. Do you agree?
Well, 2.7 million grey squirrels right across Britain, Ellie. And they were introduced, of course, in Victorian times from North America, and they have found this place to their liking. They've spread absolutely everywhere. People see them in their gardens, their woodlands, and really, if you want to get rid of the grey squirrels, it's going to be a bit like getting a genie back in a bottle.
So is there another solution apart from culling, though?
Well, Seb, they've tried culling for over 100 years, and really it hasn't had any impact whatsoever, because you'll take a certain piece of woodland, you'll cull all the grey squirrels from there. The problem you have is that grey squirrels are prolific breeders, and also as well, we've all seen grey squirrels crossing the road. They don't need a canopy to work into a new woodland that's devoid of squirrels, so they'll colonise a new area incredibly quickly. So trying to get rid of them just alone by culling is impossible. What is coming around the corner potentially, and they're trialling at the moment, is using a squirrel contraceptive. This has been trialled in Northern England and Scotland, and they're having quite a good degree of success at the moment. So what they're doing is they're putting hoppers in woodland with food that only the grey squirrels can get into the hopper, and they're using this hazelnut spread. Now this contains a squirrel contraceptive that only at the moment works short term. So if the grey squirrels are coming in, they consume that spread, then they won't be able to breed that year. So that's a really good, humane, non-interventionist way that will help potentially control the grey squirrel. So in a combination, using the squirrel contraceptive and potentially culling in certain areas and in certain locations could potentially be quite successful. And computer modelling they've tried using squirrel contraceptives and local culling has proved that certainly areas like the West Country, we could actually be functionally getting rid of grey squirrels over large areas, giving us an opportunity to bring back the red squirrel, which we should have here, our native species, back where it belongs.
We heard in Richard's report how few red squirrels there are in the West Country at the moment. Is there a genuine concern that they could be wiped out altogether?
Something like 160,000 red squirrels right across Britain, most of them in the Highlands of Scotland. Something like 15,000 left in England, Ellie. And they're mostly confined to islands where the grey squirrels haven't got access and can't pass on the virus to them. Places like the Isle of Wight, Brownsea Island and a few places like that. Elsewhere, they're in northern England in really remote areas. So they're not really in the West Country. And the only way we're going to get them back is if we tackle the grey issue.
Let's say they do go. What do we lose?
We lose an animal that many people see and many people adore. People love watching grey squirrels come into their garden. They're cheeky, they're engaging. It's probably the one mammal that most people who are not wildlife watchers see on a regular basis. But I think the people that really enjoy watching grey squirrels don't really understand what an ecological menace this species is. And so if we can get rid of the grey squirrels, wouldn't it be lovely to be sitting in our garden and watching red squirrels come into the woodlands as well? And that's the way it was pre-Victorian era. So we would arguably in the short term miss the grey squirrels, but in the long term it'd be so much better to have our native red squirrel species back. They just need an opportunity, and that's by controlling the grey squirrels, I'm afraid to say.
OK, Mike Dilger, thank you very much. How knowledgeable is Mike on this subject?
I feel like I learned a lot today when he came in a little bit earlier.
And
fascinating.
And the other thing is I've never seen a red squirrel, ever.
No,
So,
I haven't either, and now I really want to. They're beautiful, aren't
really
they?
cute. They are
Absolutely
beautiful.
stunning creatures.
As are grey squirrels as well.